First of all, congratulations everyone for being selected to submit a formal application for our 2022 Nonprofit Security Grant Fund. My name is Chris Epica. I work in our Office of Financial Management Administration here at PCCD. We have a couple other PCCD staff members on the call here to help answer questions and present. We have James Haas, Alyssa Subsinski, Christina Cosgrove, Mike Fowler, and Rebecca Keel. And you may hear them throughout the presentation here. We will not be able to hear you. If you have questions, please enter your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer your questions either through while we're presenting or at the end. We'll dedicate some time to answer any questions you may have, and we'll try, like I said, we'll try to get to all of them. And again, if you have to leave prior to the end of this presentation, this will be available live, and we'll put it on our website for you. So to get started, just want to give you a quick overview of PCCD. PCCD supports justice system improvements, victim services, and compensation, and other initiatives responsive to the needs of practitioners, communities, and the Commonwealth in general. If you visit our website, you can certainly learn more about PCCD, but our statutory role is to serve as a justice planning and policymaking agency for the Commonwealth. And we do a number of things, and certainly this is really high level, but you'll notice that first one, that's why you're attending this, because one of our main functions is we are a grant making agency. And I'm going to also give a real high level overview of our eGrants registration process, as well as the Commonwealth vendor registration process. So to be able to submit an application on our eGrant system, your agent, if you've never had a grant from PCCD before, your agency has to be registered in eGrants as well as all of the users. You will need at least 2 users to register in eGrants. In addition, your agency will have to be registered as a vendor with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I do want to refer you to an email that you should have received on April 20th. It had step-by-step instructions on how to register your agency, how to register your users in our eGrant system. It also had instructions on how to register your agency as a Commonwealth vendor. So I'm going to go over this really high level, but for detailed instructions, please refer to the email that you received on April 20th. So within eGrants, there are a couple different user roles for our external users. The financial creator role has read and write access to the budget section. The reader role has only read access to the budget section. The program creator role has read write access to all other sections of the application. The program reader role only has read only access to those sections. Submission role is exactly what it sounds like. You're able to submit applications, modifications, and reports. And the user manager role would be the role that assigns security or roles to other users within your agency. And again, all this information is available in that email and contains links to more detailed instructions on our website. So the first step in the eGrants registration is to register your user manager. Once your user manager is successfully registered, and again, you can refer to this presentation. There are links throughout this presentation as well, same links that you received in the email. Once you register your user manager, you will want to register your agency if you have never received a grant from PCCD before. And then after you register your agency, go ahead, Alyssa. That's when you can add additional users to eGrants. And like I mentioned, you need at least 2. You can have as many as you want, but you will need at least 2 registered users to be able to submit an application. Once those users are registered, they'll submit access requests for those roles that I just went over, and your user manager would be the one that would approve those access requests, and that would be the final step of eGrants registration. The last registration piece that you would have to do is if your agency does not currently have a vendor number, you will have to register as a vendor, non-procurement vendor with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and our vendor, the Commonwealth's vendor management unit. And again, like I said, I just want to reiterate that the more detailed instructions were included in the email on April 20th. With that, I'd like to just kind of jump in now to how you go about submitting an application in our Egrants system. So the first thing you're going to want to do is share my screen now, Alyssa. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to our website. And this is, of course, after you've completed all the registration processes that I've just kind of went over. So this is our main homepage here. You want to click on the little Egrants icon, and then you'll want to click Login to Egrants. Once you do that, that's where you enter your user ID and password that you're registered for. And then once you log in, what you'll see is this main menu screen. So right now, the funding announcement is open in our Egrants system. So you'll want to click the funding announcement link. And then you'll see all of our current open funding announcements. The one that you want to click on is 2022 Nonprofit Security Grant Funds. Now, you won't have an application listed here. This was this application right here in this box was me just testing to make sure everything worked for this demonstration here today. So what you'll want to click is the Create New Application button. And then you'll see it, take a couple seconds to a minute or so to process. And one thing I will note while we're waiting for this is when you're in Egrants, one thing you don't want to do is hit the back button. At the bottom of the page, there are cancel buttons, which perform the function of the back button. And also, if you'll note it, well, I'll show you here in a second, but up here, there's a little time clock that counts down from 20 minutes. That gets to 0. Anything you entered is not saved. That's the screen times out after 20 minutes. So once you successfully create your application, it'll give you your project ID number, your grant ID number. In this case, it's 36720. You'll want to write that down for access later. So click OK, and then you'll see here are all the sections that are required to be completed for you to be able to submit the application. You'll notice all the section statuses right now are in process except one. Performance indicators, that one you don't have to worry about at all. It's already complete. There's nothing to that section. First section you want to click on is main summary. You will not be able to enter information in other sections until you complete the main summary section. So here you'll see the applicant agency is, in this case, test nonprofit agency. In most cases, you're going to want to just add a recipient agency, and the easiest way to do that, if the agency is the same, you're not passing money through to a second agency. In this case, I would suspect none of you are. Hit add applicant as recipient agency. Actually, I'm sorry, we got to enter a project title first, so we'll enter your title and your description. And then you can hit add applicant as recipient agency, and you can see that that was added there. And then you have to add 3 contacts. This is where 2 of the contacts, the project director and the primary contact, can be the same. Financial officer should be a different user. So in this case, we do have 2 people here. As long as people are properly registered, they'll show up in those drop-down boxes. If you only have 1 person registered, only 1 person will show up. That means you need to get at least a 2nd person registered. So you want to enter your start date. And then keyword, the only one available, nonprofit security, hit add. And this section is done. So you flick completion step for each section. It'll have a status bar. It was just in process. Once you're done with the section, switch it to complete, scroll down to the bottom, and save. Looks like I missed a slash there in the date. And that will happen if you enter dates or numbers incorrectly. It'll give you a validation message at the top in red, telling you what's wrong. So hopefully now it'll let me save this. So once this is complete, we want to return to our application summary and continue on with the remaining sections. I'm going to stop there and let James take over and with some of the other sections.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Haas. I am the fiscal contact for the grant. As you can see, we've kind of got to start here. So you'll notice that there are still several sections that are still in progress. You will have to go through and complete all of them and mark them as complete before you will be able to submit the application. So we'll just start with the top one, which is project information. And basically on this screen, as you can see, you should have a PDF version of your SurveyMonkey, which you'll need to attach to this section. If you notice down at the bottom of the screen, there's the Add Attachment button. So you would just click on that, and then you would just write a short description of whatever your attachment. You can just put SurveyMonkey. Obviously, go in and select whatever the file and hit save, and then that will upload that to the grant. The rest of the questions, just kind of write a brief description, basically how you are going to be completing this, whether or not your funding exceeds $25,000 or not, and then just go over the excuse me, the estimated count of individuals that will be impacted by your facility. So once you answer all those questions and upload your SurveyMonkey, you can go do the completion status as complete and then hit the save button, and that will take you back to the application summary screen. The next section is procurement details, and this one does have a bit of some questions to it. We'll try to answer them a lot best we can. You'll see there's a lot of technical wording there. Basically, if a item on your grant is greater than $10,000, it will need to be competitively selected. What PCCD typically deems to be competitive selection would be 3 bids. If you're unable to get 3 bids based on the situation, it's possible we could do a sole source, which is below. But for the most part, as long as you get the 3 bids, you'll be fine for this grant. So scroll down. And basically, you'll have a few questions here. The first one is, does this application include any procurements by non-competitive proposal? If you're having everything bid out, you would just select no. If there is something that you wish to purchase through a sole source request, you would select yes, and then fill out questions 3 and 4. Question 2 is basically just saying that you will keep documentation to support everything. So we would expect to see yes there. And should you do request a sole source, you will just need to justify it with questions 3 and 4. Obviously, we have had some agencies in the past get the Blue Point system, and obviously that comes from just one vendor. So they were required to fill out this section, and obviously we'll review any requests and approve them or request that the item be competitively selected. So you just kind of follow that, and then you can mark the completion status as complete. and then go down and hit the save, and that will be marked as complete. The next section is the approval checklists, and basically you just kind of have to read each question and answer yes or no to whether or not you've had any type of audit done regularly, if you are required to have a single audit performed, and then basically if your board of directors regularly review your financial records, and then also is whether or not the financial officer and project director have more than 3 years of experience with your organization. And then finally, whether or not the agency, your organization has a segregation of duties policy. Once you answer all those questions, you would mark the completion status as complete and hit save. All right. The next section is actually budget details, but we're going to skip over that one and do that one last because that is the one that gets the most attention for the grant. So I'll skip down to executive summary. And here you just kind of need to give a very quick description of your project, and then, excuse me, and then mark the completion status as complete and hit save. Okay, so the next in process section is the worker protection certification section. So basically you'll kind of just see all of this information here. You obviously have the question below basically stating that you agree to the certification. And then once that's answered, you would mark your completion status as complete and hit save. All right, next section is fiscal accountability. And it's pretty much like the other sections. There's a bunch of terms that and questions to read over. Just go through each question and answer them to your best of your ability. You can feel free to reach out to PCCD if you have any questions regarding any of the verbiage in these sections. We'll do our best to help you, but just kind of go through and read each section and answer. Obviously, do the completion status to complete and save the section. All right, the next section is the Federal Transparency Act certification. And I do want to point out, if you'll notice in red and bold, you are only required to answer question 2 in this section. You are not required to have a unique entity identifier. You can skip that entire question. You just have to go down to section 2. That's primary place of performance, and we'll need the city that your organization is in. So you just type that there. We would expect the state to be Pennsylvania, and then the zip code, and then your county. Those are the only 4 questions or the 4 responses that are necessary for this section. After you complete those 4, you can mark the completion status as complete and save. All right, the next section is the state funding announcement certifications. And this is basically some more of the policies. These aren't federal funds, if you'll notice up at the top. These are state funds, so the federal information is not valid for this. But basically just read through each section. And again, if you need any assistance with interpreting things, feel free to reach out to PCCD. But basically just fill out each question, and then you'll mark the completion status as complete and save the section.
And James, it's Chris. I would just add that the 4 sections that James just went over, those are all standard terms and conditions sections, like he mentioned, that are in every single one of the grants that come through PCCD. So those are all sections that must be completed and are really standard terms and conditions that everyone must agree to. Thanks, James.
All right, then. Next section is the nonprofit agency checklist. This section, you'll basically see a list of items that are requested to be uploaded. And we do understand that some of these organizations do not have these, particularly the religious organizations, do not have some of the documentation. That's okay if you do not. Please just notate in box 1.1 any item that you are not able to provide, and just kind of like a real brief reason why you're not able to provide it. And obviously, if you're not required to have such a form, that would be the reason. And it's the same situation as this previously. You would hit the add attachment button, and then you would just upload all the documents to this section. And then once you have loaded everything, you'd hit complete and save. All right, so the last section is the budget detail section, which we'll go over. This was obviously a little more complex than the rest of them, so we'll go into budget detail. And you should get this screen. What we expect for this budget, or excuse me, this funding announcement for all of the grantees in this agency budget would be the selection for you. I don't believe there should be any pass-through budgets. I believe all of you should be agency budgets, so just make sure that's selected and hit save. And that brings you to the screen. And you'll notice there's kind of 3 different sections. There's by recipient agency, by category, and by source. For this grant, you'll notice that only state and cash match are available for source. And we can go over that real quick. Basically, if your grant is $25,000 or under, your grant is 100% state funded, which means the entire amount of your grant would be entered on that state line. And then if your grant is above $25,000, depending on how much, you would have a cash match. So that match portion would be listed on the cash match line there for by source. So once you enter those, you can go in and click on your organization's name, which you'll notice has the hyperlink right there. So we click on that. And now each category has a hyperlink that we can go through. We can go through the differences in each section. Personnel, and the corresponding section that kind of goes with it is employee benefits. Basically, if you have an employee that you will be paying for security or anything related to the grant, you can put them under personnel, their expense under personnel. So if you could click on personnel. And then you'll notice this on each budgetary category, there is a justification. We just ask that you just put a very brief description there. And if you have a security guard or something else of that nature that you're using, that's fine. And then hit the add new line button. And basically what we're asking here is the position. So you just kind of give a brief, just the job title of the individual, security, and then their name. All right, and then below you see there's budgeted hours a week, number of weeks, hourly pay rate, and what the standard working hours are. Say you have an individual that works 40 hours a week, but they're only going to work 4 hours a week on the grant. How you would do that is you would put 4 as the budgeted hours a week, and then for the number of weeks, you put the number of weeks that you expect the grant to last. You would put their hourly pay rate there. and then they put their 40 as their standard working hours. And basically, you'll notice now that the cost has been calculated, and the percentage of budgeted hours is 10%, which is what we would expect, since 4 out of 40 would be 10%. After that, you would just hit save. And you'll notice that the individual is saved there. Then you can just hit save, and that will save the personnel. And then if that individual has benefits, you can charge the percentage of benefits to the grant. So it's kind of the same way. You would have to put in just a quick justification, kind of maybe just explaining what the benefits are. And after you do that, you can click on the drop down, and you'll select the individual and hit add new line. So FICA is a very typical one. It's 7.65% of the pay. Medical is also there. Any benefit they have, you can put on there. You just do medical as the example. I hit the add selected benefit type. So it brings up the benefit, the cost, and cost of benefit paid by grant. So we'll just say the medical insurance is $5,000. And what will happen is, since you budgeted 10% of their hours, you can only charge 10% of their benefit costs. So for this example, we would expect only $500 to be paid by the grant. So you'll notice the budgeted hours percentage of 10 equals the percentage budgeted cost of 10. On the right side there, that was just highlighted. That's what we expect to see. And then you can obviously add as many benefits as you wish, and then just hit the save button. And hit the save to get the benefits. The next section is travel, including training. If you were to pay individuals within your organization for travel or training, this is where you'd put that section. It's kind of the same way. You'd enter justification and then hit add new line. And you just kind of have the purpose of travel, location, and item. This section typically does not show up on these grants, but there is a possibility. If you have an organization or individual going for training, we would expect to see that here. So you could just put the purpose of training being travel being training, the location. And this question does come up. You are not required to have the training in the state of Pennsylvania. If it's outside the state, we typically ask that you make a good faith effort to have it in Pennsylvania, but that's not a requirement. So obviously, as with the benefits, there's the drop down. You have mileage, per diem, lodging, training registration costs, airfare, and other. You just kind of do the same things you would. Hit the add button, and you'll say the number of miles traveled to the training, and then obviously the number of trips, and the rate, which we do go by the GSA rates. So you can check out the GSA website if you have questions regarding that, and then just hit the save button. And hit save again. And the next section is equipment. This is a popular one for this grant. Same as always, just put a quick justification in there. And another point to bring up with the procurement details, if you do have the item that's over $10,000, if you just mention in the justification that it was competitively selected, that'll make everybody's life a lot easier. So equipment is for any item with a unit cost greater than 5,000. I should say 5,000 and greater, sorry. If you've servers, some other items we've had, same thing. You would just type in the quick description of the item, the total unit cost, and the quantity, and the amount applied to the grant. For the most part, we are seeing that the amount applied to the grant for these expenses are 100%. So, but if you're wishing to buy an item and not have it fully covered by the grant, you could put whatever percentage you want there. And then you would just hit the save button and then hit save again. Should you do enter any equipment, you will have to fill out a report at the end of the project. We'll quickly go over at the end of this training. The next section is supplies and operating expenses. This is basically this very similar section to equipment, with the exception being that the unit cost is less than $5,000. So it'd be pretty much the same thing. Enter a quick description of the supply, cameras, whatever necessary item you have, and say the unit cost is $100, and however many cameras, you put the quantity of cameras being purchased, and the amount applied to grant. Just a quick note here, if the items do go over 5,000, they would remain here because it's based on unit cost, not the total cost of the item. And you can just hit save and hit save again. All right, the next section is consultants. This is another very popular section for this grant. Since most of the projects are having people come in and installing wiring, installing electrical work, that's where this would go. So if you hire an electrician, you would just put them, just type in name of the organization, or the company, and whatever, and the service they're providing. All right, so there are different cost variants. For this, we are seeing a lot, and obviously we understand with construction that a lot of that is done as a flat fee, as a job rate. In that case, you would select the flat fee button. However, if they're doing it, if they're being charged hourly or daily based on the contract that your organization has with the consultant, you would just put it that way, and then you would just put in the amount and duration if necessary. And then you can just hit save. Should you have a consultant charge you for travel, you would put it in the consultant travel section, same way you did the travel for personnel. Not necessarily something that happens very often with these grants, but it's a possibility. And we would not expect to see anything in the consultant products or service category below. We expect that to be blank for this grant. And then once you have all that completed, you would just hit save. And then construction. So if you're having a wall built or something along those matters where it's not easily broken out between the different expenses, you can just put the total here. So say you're getting security gate and it's a $25,000 gate, and it's not clear where the 25 is being broken out into. You would just put in, you can just put that in here. So you just put security gate and whatever the amount is, and put that in, and then just hit the total and hit the save button. And hit save. The other category, I would not expect to see anything in the other category for this grant. Everything should be direct expenses. So it's the same thing pretty much. If you do have anything that you're not sure where to put, you can put it in the other category, and we can work to get it corrected if necessary. It's kind of the same way as the other section where you just put in and then hit save. All right, so once you have all those sections filled out, you'd hit the return to budget summary, and you'll notice we now have expenses loaded up. So basically it looks like it's 43,816, if I'm seeing that correctly. And what you'll have to do is, since this would be technically above the threshold for the grant, you would have to have both state and cash match. So in the by source below, you would have to enter those numbers, and let's see here. Looks like it'd be about 32,945 would be the breakout for this grant. And the difference would be 10,871. So that matches up. So here's the big thing I want to point out. There's 3 totals on this section. You'll notice in the blue at the top for under by recipient agency, by category, and by source. In this situation, it's $43,816. Those all must match to set this budgetary summary to complete. If it does not match, you will get an error message. So we have these completed. We can mark the completion status as complete and hit save. So you have every section complete, which is what we'd like to see. The next step is to view the signature page. And this will generate the signature page for your organization. Not sure what's coming up, what's happened here, but let me get us. All right, and here's a copy of the signature page that you will need to upload to the grant. You'll notice that your subgrant number and the title is at the top. Your applicant agency is on the right side, and your signature page requires 2 signatures in order to submit. On the right side, right under the organization's name, that needs to be signed by an individual authorized to enter into contracts on behalf of the organization. Could be the president of the board, vice president, basically anybody that has signing authority. If we aren't sure whether or not someone would have signing authority, we will ask for the documentation, because this is considered a contract. On the left side, you'll see it says date, signature of a testing officer, and title of a testing officer. That can really be any officer or individual that can basically say that the individual, the signing individual does have signing authority and did sign it. So after you get those 2 signatures, you will scan the signed signature page, and then you will upload it to down below where it says grantee signed, and you'll just do the choose file and upload it. So once you have all the sections complete and the signature page uploaded, you can submit the signature, or you can submit the application at that point and send it to PCCD for review. So at this point, it would be, you'll notice the status says open received, which means PCCD has it, and we will then review for any changes. So we'll just take a quick stop there. Christina or Rebecca, are there any questions to answer?
Yes, there's actually several.
All right.
Let me go to the top here. Okay, so as long as each individual item is less than 10,000, you don't need to bid this out?
If an individual line item is under $10,000, it would qualify as a micro purchase. If you go to the procurement details section, it spells out what constitutes a micro purchase.
Okay. Somebody asked, what is a sole source?
So a sole source is basically a line item over $10,000 that is not being bid out. So I use Bluepoint as an example. It's a alarm system where multiple organizations were connected to it. It only comes from one organization, and that's Bluepoint. So basically what happened was the organizations filled out the sole source on the procurement details section. So they did not have to bid because obviously it's only available from one source. You're not able to bid it out. You'd have to submit that. That would be what a sole source is.
Okay. Regarding the sole source, this is only for any item over 10,000, correct?
Yes, a sole source is only required for line items over $10,000 that are not competitively selected.
Okay, and the next one was very similar. Is it 10,000 per item or for the entire grant? And it's, as James said, it was per item.
Correct.
It says, are we required to go through competitive bidding?
You are not required to go through competitive bidding, but PCCD does not have to approve a sole source, at which point you would be required to bid out that item if you wanted it. We recommend the competitive bidding both to maximize the value of the grant funds. We also are able potentially to, we just prefer it to be competitively bid out.
Okay, this is Rebecca. I'm going to take over with the questions.
Right.
Next one was, should we set up a separate checking account for this grant?
I believe that is mentioned. It is not actually a requirement. We're not requiring that of the grantees. That's just a standard, that's one of the standard template things for PCCD, but for this grant, we are not requiring organizations to open up a separate checking account.
No, but you should be able to track the funding separately within whatever system you do.
Correct. Yes, we do expect that we'd be able to see the money coming both in and out of your account.
Okay. The next question is, I have to pay $3,000 to my fiscal sponsor for this grant. Where should I list this amount? And along the same line, the same person, she's saying those lines in the budget by category do not have a hyperlink in their screen. They are under a fiscal sponsor. They use the pass-through budget.
So the fiscal sponsor should go in the consultants category. As far as the lines not showing up, that maybe we can deal with that individually. We'll have some email addresses here to put up on the screen at the end after we get done with contact information where you can send questions that we aren't able to answer specifically in this presentation. But if everything's set up correctly and you have a recipient agency identified, you have to click. Remember, if you go back through, and I'll So here, if you go back to the budget details section, you have to click on, in the by recipient agency, you have to click on the agency first, and then all the categories show up. So if that didn't answer your question, please send an email to, you'll see the email addresses at the end. Or if you already have email addresses, feel free to contact us.
Chris, I'm going to just chime in here real quick with the fiscal sponsor question. Just if there are additional, because of the competitive nature of the process, the only items that you're going to be able to request will be the ones in your original SurveyMonkey application. So if you requested, if you did not request, I guess, additional funding for certain things, or if you want to change your items, that's actually not allowable because of the competitive nature. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as well.
Okay. The next question, is this budget process just moving whatever I put in the form I submit previously into this application, or can the number between the categories be changed?
The budget, I should have mentioned this earlier, the budget that you fill out in the application is just a best guess estimate. The official or actual numbers are not required until payment request in the form of a fiscal report is actually submitted. But we would expect to see the items on the SurveyMonkey be what is on the budget.
Okay, and that kind of answers the next question of how do I fill out these numbers in my budget if I haven't gotten quotes yet, so they could do an estimate. Whatever they did in the SurveyMonkey as an estimate is fine?
Correct, yes. The budget is just a best guess estimate.
Okay. All right, next question. We fill this out based on our proposal. This is obviously not final since we have not yet bid out the equipment, correct?
Correct. It is not final. We don't need the actual numbers until the fiscal reports come in and we actually make the payments.
Next question is, I don't understand the split in the budget total.
Yeah, so basically, if you'll notice the three sections here, on this budget summary screen, the only section that can be completed is the by source down at the bottom. And that's just basically where you would put the splits in. If you have a match, you put on a cash match. If you're 100% state, all of your expenses would go on the state line. The middle section by category is automatically filled out when you add the expenses to the recipient agency. And click on that hyperlink. When you actually enter things here, those populates the categories and will bring those numbers forward.
Okay. The next one says, we were fortunate enough to have received a grant in the 2019 cycle, which we completed successfully. Unfortunately, our user manager for that project has left the organization and did not leave us with login information. Can the user manager be changed? They are the fiscal manager, the person writing this question, or do we have to start anew?
As far as the different roles go, we would want to, if that user manager is no longer with your agency, we would want to remove access. So there'll be an Egrants support number that you'll see, or Egrants support email address that you'll see here. You'll want to let us know that that person should no longer have access to your organization. And then the person, if it's a new person, they would have to register and get the user manager role. If you're referring to yourself, if you wanted to be the user manager, there is a user manager form that would have to be submitted to our Egrants support email address, and they could give you that role as the user manager.
Okay. When is the grant due to PCCD?
It's due June 1st. And I'll just answer the next one as well. The start date will be May 1st of this year. So May 1st of 2022.
And a key point with the start date, expenses paid for the grant must occur during the project period. So if you do have any projects, I would tell you not to make sure they do not start before May 1st. Otherwise, we cannot reimburse that.
Okay. In our initial application, we have some of the line items messed up. Can we switch budget items and add money for staff? I would say, because of what Christina said earlier, this is very competitive. I assume they're talking about their SurveyMonkey application. And I would have to say that they are not able to switch line items. Is that correct?
That would be correct. The line items we expect to see what's on the SurveyMonkey.
Yeah, so the SurveyMonkey has to match what you're putting into your eGrants budget. That's how it was approved.
Yep.
All right, so the next question, if we received multiple bids while planning for the grant application, do we need to do a formal bid process?
The bids you received, as long as they're still valid, you can still use those even if it's before the project period.
Okay. Can we resubmit our costing sheet as some of the expenditure heading missed it? Not quite sure. Might ask that person to resubmit that, unless you guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was just gonna say that person can just maybe email us after the presentation to one of the support email.
Okay.
options.
Yeah. That way we can address that one later. Okay. Does our request amount need to match exactly our original SurveyMonkey request, or are we allowed to make adjustments if certain situations have changed in the interim? Again, you would have to stick with exactly what you requested in your SurveyMonkey. It would have to match.
Well, I think that comes back to also the budget is just a best guess estimate. So we understand the numbers will change. So the official numbers or the final numbers aren't necessary until you actually submit a fiscal report for payment.
Line items on the grant. For example, if we are buying security cameras and individually they cost $300, but total cost of $12,000, does that need bid out competitively?
Yes, that would be considered one line item, and that would be greater than $10,000.
Okay. This is another question about the budget detail that's not linking up, so they can. We'll let you know the eGrants help desk email address to address that.
One thing you want to make sure is you've completed the main summary section first, that you've added a recipient agency, or that budget detail will not be a valid link until you do that. So that may be part of the issue.
Okay. Is every item I listed in the survey, I'm going to interpret this question, is every item I listed in the SurveyMonkey approved in its entirety?
The grants are not guaranteed by PCCD until they are officially awarded, which will be after the application is submitted.
So once you submit your app, like James said, once you submit your application, we'll do another formal review, and you may get some additional questions about line items, or asked to provide maybe additional, a little more detail than what was required in the initial application you submitted in SurveyMonkey, so that we can be compliant with, the regulations we have to adhere to. Yeah, I'll take that question. As I was beginning my registration, I was being asked for UEI number. Now I can't find where it is, but basically you don't need, that was that question one in the Federal Transparency Act certification, where the only question in that section you have to answer is question 2. You don't need to provide a unique entity identifier.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah,
Staff will get.
Yep,
Sorry, James.
our staff will get training in our office as part of this grant. We include staff's hours while they participate in the training of this grant as a personnel cost. Only if it's the personnel cost is listed in the SurveyMonkey.
Okay. Next question is, if we are already in the system from previous year's grant, is there an easy way to renew? As far as renew, your agency, if your agency was already, if you had a previous grant, the agency is already registered. If your users remain the same, you should be ready to start at just finding the funding announcement in the eGrant system and clicking the create application button. So that you don't have to quote unquote renew. You do have to certainly create a new application though against the funding announcement, the correct funding announcement.
One about the vendor prices going up on May 9th if we sign our quote. I would recommend to get your application in as quickly as possible. I mean, we could easily get the application awarded by May 9th at this point. So once your grant is awarded, all the expenses on it are guaranteed. So that would be my recommendation for that one. After submitting the budget, can items be changed later to get a cheaper price and a bigger? Yes, it's kind of what I've been mentioning with the final numbers aren't required until the fiscal reports come in. So if the cameras are cheaper and another item is more expensive than what you anticipated, there is some leeway to move funding between the between categories if necessary.
So just to make sure, though, it has to be a line item for something that was requested in the SurveyMonkey. You can't add on something totally new.
Correct.
So I think at this point, we still have some more questions, and we'll try to get to those. But I think at this point, James, I think we were going to go ahead and show folks here how to enter a fiscal report and report.
All right. So this next portion will probably be the most important or the favorite for each the agencies. Payments requests are completed through eGrants in the form of a fiscal report. So if you'll notice that the grant is now marked as awarded. And when you do get your grant awarded, you will get notified by the system. You will have to go in and upload the award letter for the grant, which basically just has all the terms of the grant. It will need to be signed by the individual that was authorized to sign the contract, and then upload that onto eGrants. Unfortunately, payments can't be made until that signed award letter is received. But once that is received, you will go to the monitoring section to submit the fiscal report. And you'll notice there's 3 buttons at the top: create program report, create fiscal report, and create inventory report. Program reports are required every quarter. Fiscal reports are also required every quarter. But you can submit interim reports as often as you like if in case of cash flow issue or if the item gets expended right at the end of at the beginning of a quarter and you don't want to wait till the end to receive. And then an inventory report would be created if you have any items in the equipment category, and that is completed at the end of the project. So to request payment, you'll click on the create fiscal report, and you will get this screen, and you'll notice it has just 2 halves here. It'll have the financial information and the budget category. For this one, looks like it's all state, and you would just in the expenses paid this period column, you would put the funding in there, however much you're requesting. If you expended the whole project there, you just put the total amount there. If you do have should you have a cash match on your grant, we would expect you to put that there. And based upon whatever percentage your match is. And you'll notice the budget categories have hyperlink on them. For this particular one, you'll notice under the budget, there's only one item that has, or one category that has expenses, that's supplies and operating. You would just click on that. And you'll see this screen, come to this screen, and you'll see that expenses paid this period column again, and you'll just put the amount there and hit save. And similar to the other one, you'll just make sure that the totals in blue match, which in this case is 7,500. They do, that's good. You will notice the unexpended cash. It looks like a negative $7,500. That is correct. That's how it should look in the system. That's basically the amount that you will be getting paid for that particular fiscal report. And then you can, if you wish, add on the add attachment button, you would click that and attach invoices, purchase orders, canceled check, whatever, basically proof of that happening, and then hit the save and upload it. And then once that is complete, you would hit that submit button at the bottom and you'll get this message. You'll just hit OK. And you'll get another statement just saying you agree. And then at this point it's submitted. You'll notice the status is submitted and pending. And then at that point, PCCD will review and will generate payment. I do want to emphasize to register as a non-procurement vendor with the Commonwealth as quickly as possible. It will make things a lot easier, and you cannot get paid without one. So that would be how you create a fiscal report. The program reports would be the same way. You would just click on the button, and you'll notice at the top it says "Make Report Final." If you expend your grant entirely before the end of the project, you can make it report final, and that would just make you done with the report. But the questions are basically, is the project on schedule, yes or no? If not, give an explanation, and then you would just briefly list activities occurring during the period. And then both the attachments and performance indicator sections, all you have to do is click on them, hit the save complete button, and that's all you have to do for those two sections. And then hit submit report and hit the agree button, and that will submit. That's how you submit a program report. So those are the two reports. Like I said, all payment requests for this grant are in the form of a fiscal report in Egrants. So you do have to do that. So, all right. Any more questions come in?
Yeah, we had a couple more. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
If a project item winds up costing more after it's completed than originally estimated and ends up going over the 10,000, so initially they did not competitively bid it out, they sole source it, so it's under 10,000, what happens then?
So it was basically considered a micro purchase at the beginning and then went over 10,000. That would, at that point, we would have to actually either have them show that they, or state that they did competitively bid that item, or they would have to get a sole source approved.
Okay, but if the work's already done, then how would that work?
I do want to point out this would just be for one line item. That is the $10,000 threshold. So if you have multiple, the more line items you do have on your grant, you know, the more clear the picture is. But should something go over $10,000 in the middle and be completed, we would have to either show proof that it was competitively bid or get an approved sole source before the payment could be made there.
Okay. And where did the two different numbers come from in the split by source?
The only two items possible for this particular grant are state and cash match. On just that front screen, you would just enter the state line. We would expect to see the amount that your grant you were awarded in state funds, and then the match, if necessary, would be the applicable percentage of that state amount. But for instance, if we do see if an organization received $150,000 grant, the match would be $75,000. We would expect the budget to be $225,000 in expenses.
Okay. Chris, were you going to add something?
Well, I'm just reading the next question. Yes, you do have to bid out equipment that is being matched.
Next question, is this a reimbursing grant, meaning we don't get grant funds until after we spend the money?
We understand that some of the organizations in this grant don't necessarily have the money to do it on a reimbursement scale. That's something we can work out, where we could, if it's a large project and they don't have the cash to, get reimbursed, we can work with the organization to do a payment where they get paid up front, but then they will have to do some more work for that. But that'll be something to just send to the resource account listed for questions.
Okay. Do all vendors I pay need to be registered or only by a certain amount?
Only the applicant agency needs to be registered. If you're if you're paying a contracted vendor, they do not need to be registered. By registered, I thought I'm taking that to mean as a Commonwealth vendor.
Okay. What condition?
All payments will go directly to the recipient, the grantees. So everyone on the phone or on this call, the payments will go directly to you. It is your obligation to pay the vendor.
Okay, I think that's all the questions then.
All right. Well, again, on the screen are two email addresses. The technical support one, obviously, is if you have trouble, registering for eGrants or logging in or technical issues with eGrants, please email that address. Any other questions regarding this funding announcement or allowable costs or things of that nature, please email the RACDNP-SEC-grant email account, and we'll get back to you. There are also contacts listed once you create an application. There are also contacts listed in your grant application that you can contact. I just want to say thank everyone for joining us here today, and again, congratulations on being selected. And thank all our PCCD staff here for put this together. So I think that's, I don't see any other questions. Again, we will make this available, and we will email the original email distribution list where we sent this meeting, the link for this meeting too. So you'll get an update on when this is available. And just again, thank you everyone for joining us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
There's one more question here, and I'll answer it quickly. If I hire a company to install my security system, would I list the camera purchases separately on the budget? Basically, if your organization purchases the cameras and then hires someone out to install them, you would have the cameras on as supplies or equipment, and then the person doing the actual installation would be a consultant. If you're hiring someone to not only purchase the cameras and the installation, we would want to see that under construction.
All right, thank you, James. I think that's it now. Again, I do want to apologize to everyone for the beginning with our technical difficulties in getting this started, but thank you all, everyone that hung in there with us. And like I said, we'll email you and let you know when this is available for you to review if you need to. Thank you.